and talk for 10 minutes. I'm going to try and make it go live. I've got 3 books to show. Right. So I think that's about to go live. I've got bloody well timers going off all over the place on my computer. Can't get on the Facebook to message Bill. Can't tell if this is working or not. I think it's working. Did it say going live for you at all? Or gone live?
It just says I'm live in the show. You're in the show. It doesn't say anything else.
I can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, it says live, 48 seconds.
Is it saying going live? Gone live?
It says live.
Yeah. No, literally, I'm stuck in between. Oh, hello. Hello. Nobody.
I appear to be here by myself. There's nobody. Oh, my wife is here. She's waving at me. If anybody's watching, I'm in Holland. Just spent 3 days in Amsterdam. This has been really great. We're in our mobile home, about 7 or 8 kilometres outside of the centre of Amsterdam, and we've been cycling in every day and cycling back every day. So I've been doing lots of exercise, which is very unlike me. So I'm unfortunately getting fit. And I have been to a comic shop in Amsterdam, and I'm going to show off some of the comics that I got there. I have no idea if anybody is listening to this, because Gray has gone. There's nobody else here. But there we are. What can I show you? I'm going to show you some of the comics that I got in Amsterdam. My wife is giving me a funny look. First one is this one. It's Harley screws up the DCU, which is a bit how I feel about Gray's show at the moment. Our Geekly Weekly show, because I appear to be the only one here. Not sure how this has happened. Oh, wait a minute. Somebody else is appearing. Nevs is fine if confused. He's not the only one. Oh, I thought somebody else was going to turn up. And they haven't. So what can I tell you? What can I tell you about Amsterdam? So, yes, we did go to the red light district. I have not been to Amsterdam before. I've passed through Schiphol Airport many, many, many times, but I never actually ventured into Amsterdam. So we decided to come and visit Amsterdam. Oh, Greyman is attempting to link up, and we've got a mobile home, so we booked on a mobile home campsite about 7 or 8 kilometres outside Amsterdam. And as I said, we have been cycling in. So first day we went to the Rijksmuseum, which is a huge museum in the centre of Amsterdam, massive building with some very famous artworks in there, mainly by Rembrandt and Vermeer. So my maximum sort of museum exposure is about 2 hours. After that, I get museumed out. But it was really good. We spent 2 hours in there. We saw some great pieces of work. We saw quite a lot of famous Rembrandt paintings. And unfortunately, the Van Gogh Museum was unbookable. So we may well come back and do the Van Gogh Museum. So day 2, we went. I said I wanted to. My wife went on a free walking tour around Amsterdam, and I decided to go and visit comic shops. There are a couple of famous comic shops in Amsterdam. One is called, what's it called? Henk Comics. It's called Henk. There you go. I went there and they gave me a free tote bag. So Henk Amsterdam. It's been there quite a long time. It's a well-established comic shop. Really good stock. They've got back issues, modern comics, but it's all in English. Nobody produces comics in Dutch. So yeah, it's all English stuff. I mean, everybody in Amsterdam and Holland speaks English. Unlike France, where they all speak English, but they pretend they don't. In Holland, they all speak English, and they're actually quite happy to speak to you in English. So they're quite friendly. So I went into the Henk comic shop, had a good route around. It got some really good stuff, really friendly staff. They've got a lot of manga, so it's quite a lot of manga. Unfortunately, there was also quite a lot of Funko Pops, which doesn't switch me on, but they did have quite a good selection of old issues and new comic issues as well. So I've no idea. Greyman, can you hear me? Yes. I can't hear Gray. Yep. Oh, yes,
you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wasn't sure what kind of sync we had, because for ages I had no screen. I wasn't sure if I was there, but I just couldn't see myself, so I had no idea what was going on. It's just this is. I heard most of what you were saying. Well, I heard some of what you were saying anyway. So you're cycling around from the old campsite to look around the museums and that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about 20.
You've been to coffee shops, yeah?
Yeah, we've been to some coffee shops. So we had. I have imbibed in some local delicacies.
Oh, is it some? What do you call it? So yeah, hash browns or what they call them, hash cakes. Hash browns. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do a lot for me, to be honest. I think I've got a resistance to cannabis.
Right.
I'm not a drug taker. My drug of choice is alcohol. So
yeah,
and I've had some friends of mine who've been really keen on weed in the past, and they've and it doesn't do anything for me much. Anyway,
loads of people I know have smoked it, but it's. I mean, I have, but I'm not really fussed about it. I mean, I wouldn't go out and buy it myself or nothing like that. It's normally if I'm drunk and someone will go, yeah, have some of that. Oh, okay, then I'm drunk anyway. I don't care. And you do. I'm not really keen on it, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. It sort of has a mild mellowing effect on me. So
I think
it makes you feel a bit more,
Yeah.
It does reduce anxiety a bit, I think. But I think I've got a sort of resistance to it.
It's not like a sensation that I particularly found pleasant, really. It's just like you feel like a numbness, and like you feel like you can get a little bit sort of, I don't know, imagination goes a bit dreamy sometimes and that kind of thing. And one time I had it and it made me feel really heavy, like I couldn't move almost. I was so like sort of heavy from it, and it was I don't really dig that. I'd rather be a bit pissed. Rather be a bit tipsy. Yeah, I don't even get bloody. I remember the last time I was blind drunk. It's been bloody years since I was actually properly tied one on. You know what I mean? So just a little tasty drink. So you bought some comics as well, or you just got a bag?
I did buy some comics. Yeah, what did I get? I got some new ones and I got some old ones.
Looks like Nev's trying to come in as well. Let's see if this can work.
Watch ya. Right. Hello, guys. Don't let me interrupt. Carry on, Mark.
I'm not going to bother changing the screen sizes because it's the way mine's going at the moment. I'm going to guarantee that it's going to bloody work. You just have to hold it up in the right place to be seen.
Have
Yeah.
you got 2 jobs now?
I start
Are you
messing with
doing
like
the-
big
are you
screens
doing
and
the
small
Oxfam
screens.
shop
It's
and
take
a
forever.
carer job as well?
2 at the moment, potentially 3 next month. So actually, I've got 4.
Oh, 4. Okay.
So regular
Can you hear him?
Oxfam book.
Yeah,
Can you hear me all right?
I can. Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah.
I hear you
I'll
now.
carry on regardless. Okay, so Oxfam book guy,
Yeah.
Kara in training. So I just finished my main training yesterday, and now I've got to wait on a whole bunch of DBS clearances, references, and I've got to go do like 25 modules before I can be sent back out into the field.
What?
Then,
Wow.
yeah, you've got to do. There's a whole bunch of training, and I'm really happy about it. Like, as I've often joked, but it's actually
What,
true.
caring for young people, old people?
Mainly old people. It's called. So it's basically like you get an assignment. So you get sent to see Kevin, and Kevin needs his commode changed. He needs a cup of tea. Or you go to see Emma, and Emma needs walking to school because she has no sense of danger. So when she crosses the road, she has no concept that the cars could hurt her. Like, it's all kinds of, it changes every time. So, but essentially, it's just like being called a support worker. But because there are so many possibilities of what you could do, it means that training has to be really, really like.
And is this with the NHS now?
It's not. No, this is a private agency.
Private agency. Okay.
So yeah, they employ hundreds of people all over the country.
Yeah. And you go in. Yeah.
You go in and they say like, yeah, you look like you probably wouldn't set fire to somebody if you were annoyed. So there's that. There's also like my other job, which is my main suck up of time at the moment, is this fashion show.
Oh yeah, that looks great.
I'm really glad someone's saying that from the outside, because at the moment I've never done anything like this in my life before, and it's actually quite easy to do in terms of like, because I have theatre experience, because I have wrestling show experience, it's essentially the same setup. Like, you're just creating a set list of items to go on stage, and then it's basically like, in theory, you find an amount of acts, you find a venue, you book the time, everyone shows up. In practicality, because it's a fashion show, it means the outfits that people are wearing, and they're wearing from the shop, which means they have to come in, pick their outfits, do a little photo shoot, which sounds externally an incredibly simple process. In practice, fuck no. But it's just been a matter of like, no one performer has been difficult. Everyone's been really good, especially for the fact they're not getting paid for this. So they're really just like, no, this sounds like a cool thing to do. But the practicality of trying to juggle all these disparate elements at the same time, while also writing like the work for modules on my phone, while trying to sort out several books, and while about studying for a course to be a 999 operator, which is
what operator?
So, you know, like if you call 999 and someone says, hello, this is 999, what service do you require? They need people at the moment. So I'm studying to do that.
Okay.
Because, again, sounds simple, but the complex possibilities that lie within that means there's a lot of training to go on. So that's my life at the moment. That's why I wasn't in last week, because I was doing the admin for the
I went for a job interview for that.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
What happened?
Yeah. Did you get frozen in time?
What?
Is that why they didn't give you the job? Did you freeze out the multiverse?
I applied for a 999 in the police, like, and it was 12-hour shift. There was no training to do to start off with. It was just like you had to pass the test of. Oh no, my laptop is. Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah, it's just you keep on freezing sporadically, like you are now. So what you're telling us is kind of like, I applied and there wasn't any training. And can you hear me now? Can you hear what I'm saying? That's what we're getting in the feed. But that's my computer. That I don't know if that's what Mark's getting. I don't know if that's
it's the same. It's great. It's great. It's the NAF 3 one they gave him.
Who's they?
Some training.
The Russians? Scrolls? KGB?
It probably was the Scrolls, actually. Yeah. So the fashion show looks great. I've seen all the sort of models. A couple of the models you've got. They look fantastic.
I've had a very charmed life. Like, as I put on Facebook, for some reason, I don't know why, much like Peter Parker, a lot of my friends appear to be really beautiful women. And I hadn't actually noticed that until I was like, who do I? Oh, wow. So the main, I don't know what the right noun is. The main siege of models, for want of a better one, comes on Saturday. This Saturday coming. I don't know if I should say this on the air, but I don't think the crossover between people interested in models and our show is going to be that great. So I'm thinking...
No, I think not.
So
unless they're really the model fan.
I'm sure I could get one of the lasses to dress up as She-Hulk. I'd get some views up. Anyway. So we've got this amazing agency called Models of Diversity, who I saw doing a show when I was running the GET bookshop last year. And by happenstance, I was stalking one of the models. I don't mean stalking in a kind of like a nice, like, oh my God, you're like made of divine manner. I need to see all your images. Anyway, so they put on this great show opposite the bookshop. And I remembered them, obviously, and was following them. And when I was trying to find people, I just threw out a Hail Mary DM, which was like, look, we're doing this, and it's probably like not worth your notice, but do you want to do this show? And to my shock, they actually responded to me, and it wasn't like a court injunction to leave them alone. It was like, yeah, we'd love to do the show. I'm like, what? Yeah, okay, cool. That's absolutely the response I was expecting. Let's make this happen. I was like talking on the phone. I was like, what? Is this real? But no, it's real. We have somebody who is apparently famous because there is a TV show called The Apprentice, which I've never watched. So I can't give too many details because I don't have them. I don't know anything about The Apprentice, but apparently somebody from The Apprentice is coming to do this thing. Anyway, we're getting 12 models coming into the shop on Saturday to pick their clothing. I don't know if you've ever been backstage at a regular Roxfam shop. If you put 6 people backstage, it's really crowded, right? And we're going to have this hissing.
Are you actually doing it in the shop?
Jesus, no. Thank Allah, thank Buddha, thank Galactus, thank Aunt Mayer's golden oldie. No, we're in Ellsfield. So Ellsfield Station is here. Then you come out the shop, and there's a KFC. The library's over here, and then there's a shop. And then straight on for about 2 minutes, there's a church called St. Andrew's Church. Okay. And again, I have no idea how the fuck we've got a church to agree with this.
Well, it's for charity, so you know.
And you'll know this. You'll know the thing. I'll tell you that in a minute. But so yeah, the show, all the backstage stuff is going to happen in the shop. So we'll get them all in. Here are your outfits. Then walk up the road, and they'll all look great walking up the road for a few minutes. However, you guys will recognize one of the names I'm going to mention. You know Kirk, right? As in Captain Kirk, who comes to the comic shows. Yeah. That's my compere.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's a pretty good lookalike, actually.
Yeah. And I figure, again, in the comics world, they'll know who Ed is because he does a very good Kirk. And in the fashion world, they're going to be like, true story, and I might have said this before on the air. A few weeks ago, I was chatting to one of the girls about putting something interesting in the window, and I was like, we need something funny or something. It was like, we've just Roger's Profanosaurus, which on the Viz.
We were doing it as
Gray, you kind of came in and then you've paused again.
Yeah, it's gone again.
So I'm going to carry on and hopefully Gray comes in. So, yeah, I was like, we've got Roger's Profanosaurus, and I'll put that in the window and it'll be quite funny, and whoever gets it, gets it. And one of the girls there, who's not stupid, she's really well-read, incredibly intelligent. She started laughing because I deliver everything as if it was a joke, obviously. And I was like, you know what Viz is? And she was like, I've got no idea what Viz is. I was like, wow, that's the comic equivalent of Monty Python and somebody saying, I don't know what that is. I found that really.
You've got to remember, it's a particular era. If she's 20 or 23, she's probably not going to know it.
No, but it was so. I mean, it was so prevalent. You know, I'm pretty sure there was a Billy the Fish cartoon. I'm fairly sure there was a Fat Slags movie because I think Jerry Halliwell was in it, and I've seen all of Jerry Halliwell's movies. Don't arrest me. So this is the thing I find really frightening. It's one of the reasons I do this with you guys. Actually, is like this whole huge cultural shift, just like gone, just like never happened. It's one of the things it's one of the comics I'm going to talk about this week, actually. But so it's like a just genuine desire to keep all this culture alive in the mindset.
That Viz Profanosaurus is fantastic.
They always are, aren't they? Yeah.
That I've got that sort of dictionary of profanities, and I think it is a genius piece of work. Mm-hmm. It really is fantastic, and I just you don't see it around, do you? I mean, I don't know. I've got a copy, but I've never seen one around anywhere else.
Well, I think they get updated every. Well, I say updated. I think they like to do a new volume. Well, used to do every couple of years because it still runs in the magazine. But I don't think there's even like a Viz. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's even the Viz annual anymore, where they just go like, "Here's 20 of the funniest strips of the year, or the most popular, or whatever." No, it's one of the Christmas annuals next to the beginning. So, and I'm wrong. I could be wrong. If there's not even an annual, right, then I don't think the proliferation of spin-off books. Because there used to be spin-off books, and there used to be like the golden rope specials, which they just called it like money for old rope. So you'd get all of the pathetic sharks, you'd get all of Billy the Fish in one magazine for the year. I think all that's gone. Because I'm sure that Roger's Profanosaurus, it was from this century, but I wouldn't swear it was this side of this century. Do you know what I mean?
No. I think it was the other side of this century. Yes, I think it was late 90s.
Yeah. How did we get onto this? Why are we talking about Viz, Mark?
Because you were putting it in the window, and this.
I was putting it in the window, and Maze had never heard of it. Yeah. But then I wonder, how do people know who Shatner is now? Because that's a weird thing. Because when I've been saying Kirk to people, and they're like, "What? Who's Kirk?" And they'll know what Star Trek is. But there's so much Star Trek in that. What is it? 60 years, 70 years since the original Kirk and Spock running around throwing paper mache rocks about. That's very early Star Trek, which is a frightening thing to say.
I think they will know who Will Shatner is because he's still alive, amazingly. Sure. And, he still has a bit of a media presence, doesn't he? So,
well, he'll do anything for a $5, so I've heard.
Exactly. So I've got a signed copy of the Gold Key Star Trek 1. And I have to tell you, there are more signed copies than there are unsigned copies.
This is like the Dave McKean rumor, isn't it? Like at one point, apparently there were more Dave McKean books signed in London than there were unsigned ones because he just had nothing else to do. So I just go into Waterstones and sign all the Mirror Mask collections they've got in or whatever.
Well, Shatner's been around so long, and he goes to every bloody convention there is. Yeah. So, signed all the bloody copies of Gold Key Star Trek 1, so, yeah.
Well, true story. I went to a Comic-Con about 5-6 years ago with a lass who was just dressed up as the White Queen because she loved Meatloaf, right? Not a euphemism. She just really, really loved him. And he was like on the super tier ticket. And this is what I wonder about with Shatner. It's like Meatloaf was obviously like doesn't do it very often, but he's in the Rocky Horror Picture Show and he's in loads of things that you could connect him to a Comic-Con, right? But it was a £200 ticket just to touch him and be in a photo of him. And then if you wanted your copy of Bat Out of Hell signed or whatever, that was an extra 30 quid. But, she was like yes. And I was like, I don't get this, but I will accompany you. But that's a really thing. I wonder if Shatner's in that realm now, or if he's like such a frequent guy. It's like he's next to like Stormtrooper number 3 out of The Mandalorian. You'll see him around the whole buffet up his top,
Yeah, no, I suspect now because of his age, and I think he probably he's doing less, isn't he? I mean, he went into space last year.
Is this actually Shatner went into space?
Yeah, he went on the rocket. He went on the I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the Millionaire's rockets, and he actually went and left orbit. And he was 89 or whatever it is, right. And he actually went up and left Earth's atmosphere and went into space for the first time. Yeah. But I mean, good on him. He's well into his 80s.
It keeps him from writing novels. I don't care what he does.
Or singing songs.
See, I dispute this. So, okay, well, Bill's here. So before he comes, I'm just going to mention this, right? There was a period in WWE around 2008, right, where they just would have a guest host on, much like Have I Got News for You does now. Where they just say they're going to get Bob Barker in, or they're going to get Seth Green, or someone to just host the thing, right? And they got Shatner to do it. And Shatner's being the old ham. He's already got form. He used to feud with Jerry Lawler, who also feuded with Andy Kaufman. So Shatner has to do the extra Shatner mile. So he doesn't just host the thing. He records versions of wrestlers' theme tunes, which is one of the most staggeringly abstract things. Because all of this stuff is like basically hype up the crowd music, like a boom, 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 boom. And then you've got Shatner just doing the like a, I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I've got the looks, the drive, and it's like, or the like. I don't want to embarrass myself too much, but Rey Mysterio's is probably the best example because it's like this Latino, like hip hop energy. It's like booyaka, booyaka, 619, booyaka, booyaka, and it's like a boom, boing, boing because there's a little luchador family bounces around, and you got Shatner going, booyaka, booyaka, 619, booyaka, booyaka, 619. Clearly, no idea what the cultural references are, what he's on about. Just like Marlon Brando in the first Superman thing, right? The lyrics just slightly off camera. He's looking at this going, booyaka? Like, sure, pay me. You know what I mean? Like,
but you've got to love it. I mean, he's just got no. He just doesn't care, does he?
No, he doesn't. It's like, I'm sure if you gave him 20 quid and do a round of supermarket sweep, do you know what I mean? It's like a whatever. But it's like, I think it's like that Henry Rollins thing that Rollins used to talk about where he was worried about his credibility, but also the practicality of that is that he would get bored. So you turn down all these gigs because you don't want to like break your image and stuff. But then you're like, okay, but I'm reading fan mail on my own on a Saturday night. And I've got this postcard that says, Do you want Black Flag to play Brazil? He's like, yes. For no other reason that I don't want to be reading mail on my own on a Saturday night. So I'm going to go play Brazil. Fine.
Exactly. So I think you're exactly right with that. And I think Shatner's just gone, what the hell? They're going to invite me to this WD. I don't know anything about the bloody thing, but I'm going.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's done like this. I know there's a whole slew of those American, like, I don't know what the word is, like a prestigious collector type, right? So you know lots of things. So you go into somebody's house and say, oh, hey, this is worth this much money. I'm sure Shatner's done one of those with all of his
through the keyhole type things.
No, is it Porn Stars? But PAWN. Hey, Bill, speaking of porn stars, hey, Bill, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Bill.
Took so damn long. I'm on my computer now. I'm not on my phone for once, so
it's an improvement.
That's what she said. No. So you guys, so I'm like in limbo. I'm like in the phantom zone, and I can't talk about all this great shat talk you guys are having right now.
What a load of shat.
And the shat. And you know, someone told him, he goes, because he had a thing in the late 90s or early 2000s called Chat, and no one told him Chat was in the dictionary. And then he found out, and he goes, oh, well, they'll have a field day with this. And everybody had it for years. And then he was like, oh, well, you know.
What the hell?
You know, yeah, sure, pay me. You know what I mean? Like, just pay me. Sure, I'll show up. Whatever.
He's.
I get the impression it's going to be one of those things like the Groucho Marx show, where like the main problem with the Groucho Marx chat show is that he was always invariably more interesting and funnier naturally than his guests.
Yeah.
So Shatner's really good at controlling a room. So, and like it's very hard to hear a Shatner monologue without him going, "Oh, and don't forget my new thing is available via here." And I can see why that would be very hard for someone to like that to be the guy running the thing rather than the guy being interviewed.
Well, you know, Groucho had the wasn't What's My Line? I can't think of the name of it now, but a duck would come down if you said the magic word and you'd win $1,000. And it was a huge hit for Groucho in the 50s. I mean, after the Marx Brothers were kind of like not forgotten, but they weren't doing anything as the Marx Brothers. Well, Groucho's one of his biggest mistakes was he said, when I die, I want Bill Cosby to take this show over. So he died.
How would he know? How would he know?
He had no idea. No, he had no idea. I'm just saying. And he had no clue. None of us did. It was like, hey.
I think he should have. I think he wasn't forward looking enough. He should have gone for a joint combination of Bill Cosby and Jimmy Savile. That would have been the killer show.
Fuck, dude. How are we going to ever monetize this shit when we have a reference to Jimmy Savile every week?
Well, there are a few Jimmy fans out there still, but they're all pedophiles.
I was going to say, genuinely, and I held it back. I was going to say, when you said, Bill Cosby, I was like, it would have been easier if they went with Woody Allen and saved time, but bang, Jimmy Savile, bang, right out the
No. And I don't want to be a defender of Woody Allen, but there's a lot of stuff out there that makes me question a lot of the allegations against Woody Allen. But that's for another day. Simply his now wife.
What day is that? What day do we do the Woody Allen apologist show?
Next week.
Okay.
I'm in for that because I like Woody Allen. I love
Woody Allen. I love Woody Allen. And I think he got railroaded by Mia Farrow and her son. And it really drives me nuts.
Are you saying they pulled a train on him?
I think so. The W train.
I'm eating my cannabis brownie, guys. I'm in Amsterdam. I bought a cannabis brownie.
Oh my God.
Are you in Amsterdam or you've been to Amsterdam?
I'm in Amsterdam.
Are you in Amsterdam? Holy shit.
I
want you on the show. Go out and have fun.
You take a small amount first because sometimes those things pack more of a walk than you might think.
No, I've had one already. They're quite mild.
Just see how it goes.
There you have it then, folks. They're mild. They're on the mild end. There's one called the 420 brownie that it was like that big, and we cut it into like 16ths. And because I was scared, it had 420 milligrams or something like that in one brownie. Well, I had that little bit, and it wound up. I was good for 6 hours. So
yeah, but Bill, you're halfway there before you even start.
I am. Yes, I am. I may be further along than that. You don't know.
Reason whatsoever.
You just don't know. Why do I have this reputation? I mean, it's deserved.
No idea. So I like the fact it's founded on nothing at all. Like no reason whatsoever. Like, there's Bill.
complete happenstance. Yeah. No,
sure.
Well, so
and I'm a James Brown impersonator.
That being said, I'm working on a pilot for a television series called Hashman, but that based on my friend's graphic novels. So I mean, everything is happening. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. And I actually came back to my old podcast Sunday, the Comic Book Historian podcast, which I hadn't been on for like several years, and that's
okay. That's good.
Essentially, I created it. Yeah, it was like we were like a band when we broke up. It was creative differences, but
okay.
But Alex and I don't have that, so it worked out great. It was really a nice evening, and I'm this. I'll tell you this. This show makes me feel like I'm ready for anything. If I can deal with you guys, with no editing whatsoever, I can take on the freaking world.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, Bill.
You know what my mom used to call Amsterdam when they'd go to Europe is she'd call it the most beautiful dirty city in the world.
And yeah.
That's really good. That's really good, though. I like that.
I love that. I love it. My mom was unique, but I'm glad you're having a good time, Mark.
Yeah.
Have you been picking up any comics? I know you have.
Yeah. There's a couple. There's a really great comic shop in Amsterdam. It's been there for ages. It's quite well known. It's called Hank. Hank. There we go.
H-E-N-K. Okay.
No, I had a friend go there and get me some stuff years ago. I forgot all about Hank. That's awesome. That's where I'd go if I were you. So
yeah, and it's right in the middle of the red light district.
Oh, well,
that's genius. That's absolute genius.
So he got eye candy and comics at the same time.
I've got stories about this kind of thing.
I kid.
Really great shop. Got everything. Staff really know what they're talking about. It's all in English, of course, because the Dutch all speak English.
Oh, thank God. Yeah.
It's not like France where they speak English, but they pretend not to.
Right.
If you go to Paris and you speak English, they sort of stare at you as if you're an idiot. Whereas, they know perfectly well what you're saying, but they just want to be difficult. Whereas, in Holland, you speak English and they just speak English back at you pleasantly.
Isn't that nice?
So, all of them speak English. So,
yeah.
And there's no Dutch comics. Okay. There's no comics in Dutch. Because you'd have a market of about 12 people, I suspect. So, this comic shop.
I would have assumed there were Dutch comics, but
didn't see any. I didn't see any in Dutch language.
Wow.
I tell you what, I'd be interested in if you find any. So there's that whole line of Free Press Amsterdam stuff. Where they reprinted all the the Nemo stuff and the Betty Boop stuff.
What? No, that's interesting.
Cats. Yeah.
I wish you told me that before I went.
I'm sorry?
I wish you told me that before I went, because they probably did have that. That's the type of stuff. They had a load of independent stuff. Really strong on independence. What I did pick up was they do signings. They do signings there. So there was this. They'd had a signing the week before I was there by this guy Dennis Menheer. You can tell by the name he's probably Dutch. So this was a comic for what's the comic? It's Source Point Press, and it's a one shot. And I've read it. I really didn't like the story at all. But I love the artwork, and this is actually signed by the artist.
They released T-shirts the day after he signed, and it said "Menheer has been here."
Menheer has been here. Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, they missed out on that, Bill. They could have done with you as the promotional.
Giving further evidence of Bill's lunacy. Thank you so much.
That's the promotion. I mean, I really do like the artwork, but I didn't like the story at all. So I will be looking out for Dennis Menheer in the future. So that was quite nice. So I got a signed copy of that.
It's gorgeous. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, very nice artwork. And the other thing I picked up from there, which was really great, and I didn't know anything about this, but they had back issues. So I was searching through the back issue sort of selection, and I found this, which is a Silk Spectre before Watchmen, Silk Spectre #4, and these are usually so the standard is by Darwin Cook.
Yeah.
Darwin Cook and Amanda Connor. Okay.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Which I collect Darwin Cook. I think he's a great artist, and he died really early.
Yeah.
But I also found before Watchmen #4, the 1 in 25 retail incentive by Bruce Timm.
There were only 25 of those.
No, 1 in 25.
It was a retail incentive.
25 copies.
You had to buy 25. You had to buy 25. The retailer had to buy 25 to get one of these.
Get one.
This is really very rare. I checked it up on Go Collect, and 9/8 of this goes for nearly $600.
Shit. Get out of town. That's
Well, I was feeling guilty about that Crypt of Dawn, but now that guilt has been assuaged. Thank you, Mark.
So this cost me €20, so I was quite pleased with that.
That's
pickup.
all right.
wow.
Yeah,
So,
that was
so
all
That's
right.
what, £75.
is that a Cook cover or a Tim cover?
That's this one. This one is a Bruce Timm.
Yeah. Okay. Because their styles are very similar. Sometimes
They are, yeah, they are very similar. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Comic Mag Musings to answer his question. Watchmen was written by the Grey Man lookalike. However, there was a series put out at the same time as the New 52, which was called Before Watchmen, which acted as a prequel. Some would argue unnecessarily, but I'm not going to get into that on this show. And it was basically like who was it? Mark Chalarow getting together all the good people who were associated with DC at the time. So Darwin Cook, Amanda Connor, the Kubert boys, Adam Hughes, J.M. Straczynski, Edward Rousseau, Steve Rude. They all came together on these kind of things that happened before Watchmen #1. And what Mark is showing us is one of the variants for the Silk Spectre story, which is basically Janie decides to go off and be an acidy hippie for 4 issues, and before she comes back to her mum.
Well,
So
that
yeah,
was perfect.
before
That
Watchmen
was
is,
brilliant.
obviously Alan Moore had nothing to do with that, and I imagine he still curses the name of everybody involved. When he should just curse, everyone involved with the Button or the Rorschach ongoing. Or
Yeah, but
So,
that's
Doomsday
Alan,
Clock.
isn't it? He doesn't appreciate people riffing on him. Right.
Well,
Right.
I will say this. I thought Watchmen television series was phenomenal. I thought it was every bit as good as the original comic series. I thought Jean Smart playing a grown Laurie, what was her first? Laurie.
Laurie, yeah.
Yeah, Laurie. I thought she was a great, 60-year Laurie. I thought she was fantastic in it. I liked everything about it. And I don't see, I haven't found many people. What I'm surprised at is that they didn't grab Dave Gibbons and make a comic series out of it, because it would have fit so well. The characters were great. And they've talked about doing another season or a sequel, but I don't know, man. It's kind of like Lovecraft country. It's kind of hard to follow up something that great with,
Here's my caveat with that stuff. Not to let the whole thing get derailed into Watchmen territory, because I think this is a conversation many of us have had several times in our lives. My main problem with extrapolating from Watchmen is this, right? So as we all know, those characters are based on the Charlton properties that Dick Giordano picked up when he was DC, right?
Yeah.
So all of these characters still exist in at least one of the 52 universes. So you still got the Question, you still got Peacemaker, you still got Captain Atoms, Blue Beetle, etc., right?
Yeah.
So why not, if you're going to do a new Rorschach series by Tom King, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just do a Question series. Why not just do a Blue Beetle series instead of a Night Owl series?
Well,
of course, that was the original. That was the original thing. Nevs,
of course it was. Yeah, and they were like, no,
because Alan Moore, they gave Alan Moore all those Charlton characters because they just acquired them, and they said to them, we don't care about this lot. You do that. And then he did the synopsis for the Watchmen, and they said, oh, hang on a minute, we could never use these again if you do this to them. Yeah. So you have to. We love the story, but you need to do it with different characters because we're never going to be able to use them again.
Right. But I mean, but the corollary of that is they still have them. Like, I think the only significant change to any of it is that the Question was Rennie Montagna from Gotham Central for a bit. But beyond that, like, Ted Cord is still around. Captain Atom, I'm sure, is still in one form. Yeah, exactly. So there's no. Except for cashing in, no pun intended, on the cachet that the Watchmen brand brings to a concept, there's literally no reason why you couldn't do these things because they were already designed with the original characters in mind, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem Alan probably has is,
more people know the Watchmen variants though than they do the Charlton original.
That's true. That's why they do it.
But that's DC's
ran into problems.
That's DC's fault for not You know,
of course it
the
is.
embarrassing thing about the continued exploitation of Watchmen is there should have been dozens, if not hundreds, of things that made the Watchmen look like the Beatles do today, right? Incredibly innovative of the time, but other things have happened. But in comics, especially superhero comics, Watchmen doesn't have very many peers. There's not a lot that you would put alongside Watchmen, so it still keeps on getting, in the same way that Miracle Man now reads in a very difficult way, because so many people have plundered the techniques and the meta-ness and the realistic consequences that you kind of go, well, this reads like everything now. I think that's the same problem with Watchmen, is that it's been plundered so many times. It reads in such a familiar fashion because so much has been used from it.
Right.
But that's DC's fault for not continuously getting projects that would make Watchmen look old, that would make it look hackneyed. So yes, I think that's not Alan's fault. I think they should have done more. I think the main difficulty was when they went like, hey, look, people seem to really like it when superheroes have psychological problems. So now the Green Lantern has to have a DUI. And you're like, that wasn't the appropriate realm for those ideas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Musings. I do want to say, who do you like that's not British, that's American?
No, I mean, I disagree with Bill. I'm afraid I'm a more Gaiman fan. I do like Millar and Robbins. I do like the others, but I'm afraid Moore and Gaiman are far superior.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you on that, Mark. Actually, yeah, no. I think I still, people will bash me for this, but I think Stan Lee may be the greatest comic writer ever because of what he wrought. I mean,
do you mean? Okay, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here, Bill.
Okay.
Do you mean he was the best person who wrote comics, or do you think he was the best person who wrote about comics? Because I think those are two very different fields. I think Stan Lee was the greatest P.T. Barnum that this whole medium ever had. Ever. Like, if you had Stan Lee promoting Will Eisner in the 60s, we would have seen a revolution of like nothing else.
Well,
but I think if you go back and read anything that doesn't have a Ditko or a Kirby attached to make those ideas flesh out, and I'm being really generous to Stan on this. Let's just say you did that work.
I don't think you are, but that's okay. I appreciate your opinion and respect it. All I'm saying is that, yes, you had some of the greatest artists of all time working on that. Yeah, that helped stand out a lot. No duh. But Kirby couldn't have written the Thor dialogue of Asgard. Ditko couldn't have written the dialogue for much of the Spider-Man stuff. You had things, and so, yes, he had a blueprint in front of him that was so well orchestrated and put out. It was very easy for him to write those books because they were almost written already. All right. But
so for me,
the dialogue guy,
his story
than the writer
still read as good as any of the newer guys we're talking, in my opinion. And you don't have to agree with me. That's what's beautiful about it. It's my opinion. But
my view on this, I'm more towards Nevs here. I think Lee is certainly fantastic. He's a great talent, but for me, it was more as an editor and as that manager who brought together the talents, melded it together, and between them became greater. The combination of them was greater than the parts, and that was Stan Lee's talent. If you took him purely as a writer, I'm afraid he's not up there for me. If you take him as, the sort of the sort of entrepreneurial manager who makes a fantastic team, can pick the right people at the right time to do the right things, meld them together and get that spark, that was Stan Lee for me.
Well, he was a frustrated comedy writer, and I think here's the thing. The MCU would not be the MCU without their hat tip to the late Al Jaffe. But they didn't have snappy answers to stupid questions, which Stan Lee was great at producing, and great like the jargon, the jokes, everything that people have connected to in the Marvel universe, cinematic universe.
Mhm.
I would say 90% of that came from Stan, and that's another thing. And yes, you can gig him as a writer. I realize what you're saying, and especially when you do deal with people that are almost in lieu of a Shakespeare for comics, you would almost put that on Gaiman or more. And I understand that. But Stan had some of the best one-liners. He's the guy who came up with Shellhead for Iron Man, came up with all of Spidey.
Oh, I'll give him the Charles Dickens Award. You know.
But that's such a big part of the comic book genre. I feel like and yes, I am a big Stan lover. But I also am a huge, and I knew Kirby, I knew Stan. I didn't know Ditko. I wish I had, but you know, he was quiet, so he might not have liked me very much. But I understand. But
what are you saying, Bill?
I'm just saying I'm a bit loud. But what I love about all this is that we can talk about it, and you know, none of us are here to change anyone's minds. However, you guys have changed my minds on lots of things, and you know, Mark, you've turned me on to things that I didn't know about, because the the United States comic market is so different than yours, you know. And that's, I mean, not a bad thing, not a good thing, but we haven't been privy to a lot of the great stuff you guys have seen. Just because
I'm glad you said that.
You know,
I got some
waiting right to Nevs next. Go ahead.
So obviously, like, as not much has happened with the collection I picked up from the other side of the country, because life, fashion show, carer work, etc., etc. However, I have started going through one of the boxes, and I figured you might not know about this, Bill, but as you're a Gaiman fan, you might dig this a bit. So I know you guys have like the telethon TV things, or you used to have, where like Jerry Lewis would host a thing for hours. Okay. We did that. Well, we still do that via a number of things, like Children in Need, and the main one over here is Comic Relief, which is like, it was started with a bunch of comedians, the likes of Jonathan Ross and Lenny Henry, would get together and they put on shows live on the air, and then they'd cut to like an appeal saying, hey, here are some people starving, chuck us some money. So one particular year, and the timing of this is beautiful.
Jonathan Ross is one of less than 10 people I would call a friend from Great Britain. You guys are two ones, but yeah. I mean, casually from Facebook, but he talks to me a lot. We haven't talked in a while, but you know, he's a really good, I love him. I really like him a lot.
You're not going to be too surprised if I tell you I know him, right? Like,
oh no,
because that just compounds the idea that Britain is basically like two roads long.
If it's any consolation, I've never met the guy.
Well, I've always all knew every. You know, it's such a small little island, but
like, you know, it's basically The Prisoner. Like,
I love that show, by the way. I wish I all of my friends ordered on Kickstarter these Prisoner action figures that are fantastic. And of course, the Rover, it's just a balloon that you stick the action figure in. But
I special thing that you don't know about, Bill, or maybe you do, but maybe the audience don't, because this has been out of circulation for quite a while. So anyway, there was a Comic Relief thing, right? And one year, at the peak time, where British comic magazines were like being completely amazing in the mid-90s, where you had Deadline, you had Toxic, you had Revolver, you had Escape, you had Espresso, you had the magazine, which has just started being a color magazine. Lenny Henry and Jonathan Ross and Neil Gaiman put together this, and this is the Comic Relief comic, and this is basically like the apex of British talent at the time, and this was like if you spent the money and got the comic relief, like red nose that you put on, like some of these are wearing, you would get this. So this is doubly weird because there is a reference to Jimmy Savile in this. And this
He was
is
probably
long
the main
before
hero.
anybody knew.
Strangely, no, I'm kidding. But
So I'm just going to try and quickly go through this because, so if you see Lenny Henry there, he's one of our top tier British comedians. He's been like a big comic. He's also a massive comic fan.
Wasn't he on Red Dwarf?
No, that's a different black man.
I'm sorry. Well, forgive me, folks. Wait. Was it? He wasn't in a science fiction TV
That's a different black man. I think we should just cut the show.
No, please no. Well, here's the thing.
Wasn't that Bill Cosby president? Didn't
Yeah.
that Bill Cosby guy getting to be into the White House?
Really thin towards the end of his presidency, right? He just looked.
You're kidding. You're killing me. You're kidding me and killing me at the same time. But thanks. No. So
Hey, look, it's President Obama.
So with Bill and Jimmy, Bill like roofies, Jimmy like youthies.
I feel we should move on.
I know. My ad-libs are so freaking I'm sorry, I just had to go there.
Wow.
But you know what cracks me up about all this is that there have always been sex scandals in comics also, and people don't talk about those. I mean, once they're done, people kind of get tired of talking about them. But there were things that went on at Marvel in the 80s, and let me see. Oh wow,
it's beautiful stuff. I'm just going to use this to just to show it off, so you can say what you're saying while I'm.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
I'll read out some names as we get to the end of it. But yeah, go on. So, sex scandals in the 80s at Marvel. Let's get the show demonetized and the full story.
Too, and then you had the Gerard Jones thing where he's serving time for child pornography. You know, I mean, I'm just saying, comics have not been unscathed by these kind of crazy, things going on. So that's just gorgeous.
I've never seen that before. I'm going to have to look out for that, Nevs. That's really nice.
I'm sure I've got a spare copy, but there's this beautiful painting of Rowan Atkinson. This is pre him becoming like Mr. Bean, right?
Yeah.
With you guys with that. But yeah, he was genuinely a huge British comedy actor over here for a show called Blackadder. And he was also on, not the Young Ones, was it? What's the thing I'm thinking of, Mark? There's like a show, an anthology British comedy show that he was part of.
With Mel Smith and
not the 9 O'Clock News. That was the other one.
Yeah, not the 9 O'Clock News.
And the guy who played House was in it too, right?
That's a different English man.
It was a guy called Hugh Laurie. Who was
Hugh Laurie? You're right. I got our people confused.
And the Bean dude, Rowan Atkinson, weren't they?
He's also in Blackadder.
Together? They did do stuff together. Yes, I think.
Okay. Well, there you have it.
But neither of them were black or had anything to do with paedophilia.
But the
but they weren't in Blackadder together.
Barack Obama.
Yes, Hugh Laurie was in the.
He was in Blackadder. Yeah.
And so was Rowan Atkinson, right?
Yes.
Yes, he was the lead.
Okay, well, that's what all I was saying was they were both in Blackadder, and y'all were like, "Oh no!" I think
Hugh Grant was in it. I'm like, no, he's not.
And Stephen Fry was in Blackadder.
Yeah. Oh, hey, so we've got another Viz reference because I can't not bring up Viz apparently.
Okay.
Hang on, I'll get the angle.
Viz.
So this is Viz as in the British comedy magazine, not Viz as in the publisher of manga. I should hasten to add for any Americans still watching.
Who you meant? I speak British. I speak British. I can't even see.
God, I think I preferred it when you were being unintentionally racist.
Well, British heritage. That's just so stupid today. I love this. We lost Brett
anyway.
Years ago.
I was going to mention this on the Mondo Funny Books page, which is my Facebook page about comics I find. So I'll like tag you in this because this is one of the peak representations of the form of British comics magazines, and we don't get enough credit for the anthology format because we
don't.
Invented that stuff, and you guys did quite a good job with the EC stuff and all that.
Oh yeah,
we were there first.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with you 100%.
But on the same period of time, actually, because I'm going to jump on something that's much quicker, and I'm going to what's the word? I'm going to declare nepotism because he has been a donator to the shop. So one of my favorite comics by someone who I also consider a good friend is a comic called Bulletproof Coffin, written by David Hine and drawn by Shaky Kane. Got to get the angle right. So what Dave does lots of things. I mean, sadly, probably the most famous thing he's responsible is the creation of Spider-Man Noir from the Spider-Verse.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what Dave does for aspiring writers and stuff is he puts together these little packs where you get the original comic, and the Bulletproof Coffin, if you haven't read it, is like it's a comic that everyone who watches the show will enjoy because it is about the feeling of nostalgia of comics. It's about that weird smell of these adverts from an entirely different culture, the complete unreality of it. So standard issue of the Bulletproof Coffin, dubious back cover thing because of course it is because it's Shaky Kane drawing it. Beautiful art, yada yada.
Shaky Kane.
But then you kind of work out how to do this stuff if you want to be a professional. You get a copy of the script, the same script that Shaky drew from, you get with a thing. So if you want to basically draw your own version of a thing, because it's always the most important thing, I think. If you want to be an artist of any form, get hold of a script and learn to draw from there. And you will get it wrong. But the more of these that you do these from, that you practice from, the more professional scripts that you have to work from, the more chance you have of making your work look like a professional's put together rather than hoping. Anyway, I'm always on the side of promoting Dave's stuff because he's the worst self-promoter in the history of comics. Sorry, Dave, I love you, but you're really bad. And also stop giving your comics away at cons just because people walk up to you. Sell them the comics.
So is he like the anti-Stan?
Yeah, and it's really endearing. It's like a really nice Devon guy who wants to talk about comics history and stuff. And then, Dave, you've taken no money because you keep giving away your stuff, and it's really good.
I can't make any money.
But when he dies, does it matter? He's
wow. Sure, yeah, does it matter? Okay, fine. And sure, the red sun will implode and destroy all culture and life that has ever been. Why are we even fucking bothering with a show? Dust will take us all away, my friends, and nobody will remember.
Oh, but
sentient beings to have a memory. Hey. Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Just did away with 10 years of therapy for me. Now I'm into a reeling depression. Thank you so much. Good night.
Death is coming live from Saturday night.
Anyway, here's a copy which I picked up in Amsterdam.
For a second.
Oh,
wow.
Wow.
I'm afraid this is a modern reproduction of Wiz Comics with the first appearance of Captain. I think it was Wiz Comics number 2, wasn't it, Bill?
Yes, it was. Because Wiz Comics really happened.
I didn't, but I might have known.
Yeah. And first appearance of Captain Marvel. Now, this caused the start of a 14-year, I think it was 14-year legal battle.
It was.
Whereby DC claimed that Captain Marvel was too similar to Superman. And they claimed, there was a copyright battle between national periodicals and Fawcett Publications, who produced this. And I have to say, they have got a point. Wiz Comics here with Captain Marvel, what is he doing? He's throwing a car. What happens in Superman number 1?
Sure. The angle's different. The composition is different. The car is different. The costume is different.
Well, yeah.
I'm joking.
I could see Fawcett's point if you were going to take it to court.
Well, yes. And that's why it employed lawyers for 14 years. And the only people who got rich were the lawyers.
But the alter egos were completely one was a boy, one was a man who's a reporter. No similarities. there's so few similarities. It's just mind-boggling. There are more similarities between Superman and Hyperion. Of course, Hyperion was created to be a fake Superman. But
has he got a cape?
Hyperion, yeah.
Yeah.
Or are you talking about Captain Marvel or are you talking about Superman?
Captain Marvel's got a cape.
Yeah.
He's throwing a car.
So does Batman.
Look at that face. Look at that face on Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
That is not 1,000 miles away from a Superman face.
I mean, they both men with faces.
The cape only goes to his waist, and Superman's go to his boots. And Superman doesn't have armbands, and Superman doesn't have a captain's jacket.
And the color scheme is completely different.
I don't know, man. I just see so many differences. He's from Earth. He's not from another planet. I mean, there's so many things that I don't know. I still to this day think it was the most ridiculous lawsuit ever brought in comics. And Fawcett was losing money because Captain Marvel wasn't selling like it had been, so they just gave up the ship, and because it was easier to do that than
they threw in the towel.
Yeah, and DC wore him down, and it's too bad because for most of his 13 years in publication, Captain Marvel outsold.
Was more popular. It had
far more popular.
Yeah.
He also had the first serial. Superman's cartoon came first, but then as live action stuff, Captain Marvel had the first serial before any of the other comic characters. I mean, he was really, I don't know. I still wish they wouldn't call him Shazam. I hate that. I wish he was still Captain Marvel. I wish
they did. Did you see the last film? They did get quite close to that because they have you seen the recent film?
I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the second one,
and I want to see it. Is it good?
It's a hoot. It's an absolute hoot. I saw it on the ferry over to Holland, and it's just fun. It's like it was like superhero movie as fun. I wanted to get. It was like it's Kal-El. It was just fun. It didn't take itself seriously. It had heart. Did
it have the bunny?
You didn't hate the characters. You liked the characters. It was good versus evil. It was fun. I gave it a 7.8 out of 10. I thought it was good.
Well, I will see it now. Okay, real quick, we got to do Kyle's theme song. Here comes the smoke. Here comes the smile. It's Kal-El. Okay.
I'm just here to play Lord Flashheart. You got the Blackadder talking, I had to dive in.
Wait.
I would fucking pay money to see Kyle play Lord Flashheart.
Oh my god.
I am all in.
One of the sweetest conversations I've ever
abandon the
had.
show. Let's just have Kyle do Rick Mail and
I think it's just typecasting. Just typecasting.
One of the sweetest conversations I ever had in my life was telling Rick how Lord Flashheart was an idol of mine, and he just cut me to pieces with it. And I will smile. That was like 10 years ago, and I still can't stop smiling about it. That I got to tell Rick Mail, dude, you made me laugh so hard I peed my pants a half a dozen times. Said, you are just genius. And he's like, shut up. And then he just took the piss out of me.
Shut up.
He just took the piss out of me. So, but yeah, talking about Stephen Fry and you, Lori, and you didn't mention Tony Robinson. And I'm a Blackadder nut. So I was like, okay, I'm not just going to sit in the shadows. I'm going to talk Blackadder. And I was going to put on my red nose for Red Nose Day and Proxy, but I don't know where it is. So.
None of us do.
But treat your bird like treat your kite like you treat your bird. Get in her 5 times a day, take her out to heaven and back.
You know what, Kyle? Every time you go on the show, I question whether I'm awake or not, and I mean that as a compliment.
I just hung in the background,
They
just
want to do more drugs.
today. So.
Look, Mark's eating another brownie. Look.
This is really happening, Mark. This is really happening.
I know. I'm just sort of in my cannabis haze, and I've now got this picture of Kyle as Flashheart.
Oh. All right, here we go.
What do you mean, here we go? What the fuck are you doing?
Ask me why I don't wear any underpants.
Oh God, I gotta go take a piss.
Go ahead, ask me why I don't wear any underpants.
Kyle, why don't you wear any underpants?
Because I haven't found any that could take the job on. Oh.
I'm going for a cigarette because I got nothing. I
I
that's
have
gonna
quoted
top
that. I have
Mark,
quoted that.
it's all yours, man. Good luck. Oh, Mark, this is all actually happening.
Okay, thank you very much.
It is happening. It's good to see you having fun there, buddy.
I've got for you in my hand.
Nice. On the road.
How you doing,
Hey,
Kyle?
Mark, you ready for a funny one that would embarrass the hell out of my wife?
Go for it.
All right. So, or my wife. Oh my God. Yeah, there's a Freudian slip if ever there was one.
Do you mean your mom?
Thinking about my wife. Yeah, it's my mom. There's one about my mom because my mom sent condolences on one of the threads. But I was thinking of something else my wife said at the same time, so I didn't confuse them for anything bad. My wife had sent me a message to you that I haven't relayed yet, and I overlapped them. So she sends her best. But my mom felt terrible because on one of the shows, the guys were busting your chops about your wife putting up with your collecting habits. And somewhere in my mom not paying attention and walking across the screen as she did it, she thought, oh, I'll send Mark my condolences that his wife divorced him. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, Mom, they're on vacation and things. And she goes, oh, well, they were talking. And I'm like, Mom, they were taking the piss out of him about investing in his comics. Oh, okay. Little egg on her face. I'm like, yeah, okay.
My wife's just in the background here, actually.
Yeah.
So,
And then my wife sent her warmest regards. And
thank you, Kyle. That's nice.
so I hope you're having a great vacation and the yada yadas. And I told her it'd probably be about 6 weeks before I talk to you because you're traversing Europe. So that was the two messages.
Time for us tonight. I'm so happy. I was already, dude. I was homesick for you to get back to England, which makes no sense, but you know what I mean. But
And Bill, I was surprised you didn't say anything when I sent you the link. I'm the one that sent you the link to get on.
Well, no. Well, what happened? I didn't see. So here's the weird thing. Gray never sent me the link, and so I what I did was I couldn't just type it out in my search on my home screen for some reason. But I sent it to myself in an email and it worked. So
yeah, I mean, when he said copy and paste it, I sent it to you in an email too. So now you
thank
have
you, brother. Well, I appreciate it.
So,
thank you, Kyle.
yeah, when he said cut and paste, when Mark started the show, and he was like, I don't know if anybody's listening or watching, I was the one and just kind of hanging there. But
I'm just happy to be here.
So
Gray's gone completely. I can't. I mean, it's his show, isn't it? Where is he? He's gone.
He's still having computer problems, isn't he?
He's using this crappy old computer they gave him for free, which must be useless.
And I'm trying to remember, and he's talking about as a boy he lived in the house opposite of me. I'm pretty sure it's Rowan Atkinson used to live.
No, Jonathan Ross.
Oh, Ross. Okay.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, he lived virtually next door to Jonathan Ross. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm the only English person you know who doesn't know Jonathan Ross, Bill. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is so weird. You are.
Hey, I don't know Jonathan Ross, I had a few months of conversations with Rick Mail, thanks to his daughter, right before he passed away. But that's my only English connection.
He just went from a heart attack, didn't he? It wasn't expected. Rick
Oh,
Mail.
I'm fine now.
No. He had an Ozzy Osbourne type thing. He had a 4-wheeler accident that screwed up his innards.
Yeah.
And it really made a mess of him, and he deteriorated pretty hard in the end.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty sad.
No.
Wasn't that?
But never lost that sense of humor. I told you, the man took the piss out of me. I mean, he literally took the piss out of me for like a month straight. And I just had tears of joy and laughter in my eyes for like a solid month.
That translates to a lot of piss, man.
Oh my God. Like I get on with him and just say, hey, just to kill a few minutes during the day, he'd want to just vent, and I'd let him vent, and we kind of bonded. And yet I could not stop with the platitudes, and every time I did, he came at me. He came at me and just twisted it.
Kyle, I gotta say it. You know, I'm a medical guy, right? And I'm really into semiotics. If you say someone is literally taking the piss out of you, do you know how that?
Yeah, he was giving me the squeeze.
So his super.
Was there like a pump?
The human diuretic.
Oh my God.
The human diuretic would be his superhero.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Piss out of. Yeah.
Well, no, my bladder cancer doctor took the piss out of me, literally.
Okay, well.
Okay, there we go.
Now that was
Get there eventually.
He made it.
No, but that dude, I'm telling you, he took the piss out of me harder than that little bag they
You
put
know what?
up in.
I'm gonna start selling bingo cards of this game, and on the thing's gonna be like cancer and Jimmy Savile and unintentional racism, and we'll see how much money we can make that way.
Well, I mean, come on now. There are the guy from Fine Young Cannibals. He wasn't the one you were talking about.
Holy shit!
You know, us dumb Americans. You know, hey, there's a.
But that was the same guy that was in the English speech. Someone had to tell me that recently. I never knew that. I never realized it was the guy that danced around like this, became the cool guy that sang Elvis. I love it. But
Kyle.
Sorry.
What I love that is Rick Mail spotted something in you that I think you've got, which is he knew he could take the piss out of you and you would not take offense.
I couldn't quit laughing. I couldn't quit laughing. And when he died, I couldn't quit crying. I probably cried every day for a month at some random time after he died. And I just kept feeling so sorry for Aid, because I mean that just gutted Aid. Oh my God, that gutted Aid. But yeah, I mean he knew it was coming. His family knew it was coming. And like I had this unbelievable crush on his daughter, on Rick's daughter, because she was so nice. I had that kind of human to human crush, you know, where I wasn't enamored with the woman, I was enamored with the human. And just, he got it right with that kid, that was for sure. Such a sweetheart.
As opposed to the human to human crush that was felt at the Who concert in Cincinnati. And
there you go.
I'm sorry, I had to go there. It's me.
As opposed to the wrestler crush who was in Demolition and took over the place of Axe because he was too injured, and then wrestled as Kona Crush. Worked against Doink at WrestleMania 9. Complained to Doink about making kids cry, brah.
Hey, aren't Doink and Dink the same person?
No, they are not, because one is a dwarf and the other one isn't. You know this, Kyle.
Hey.
You knew. You just want to bring the word dwarf into the show in context.
My favorite Trivial Pursuit question ever.
Since that era. So
my favorite Trivial Pursuit question ever. By far, best Trivial Pursuit question ever.
Does it involve Willow, Lord of the Rings, other things?
What pub game in England became illegal? And I'm going to use a year, and I might be off by the year, but in 1988, what pub game became illegal? Dwarf tossing.
Yeah.
It took that long.
It was in the 80s before dwarf tossing became illegal. That
It
is
took
my
us till
favorite.
1988 to go, do you know what? We shouldn't do this.
Yeah, that was my,
Mate,
that is
seven,
my
I-
favorite
you know,
Trivial Pursuit question ever.
Only came around after Velcro, right? So they'd stick
No, I mean, you know,
No.
I was born in '59,
No.
so you know,
Do you know Mr. T
we
became
you know, I
popular?
regularly used to
It's
go
like
dwarf
ours.
tossing.
Just like get them down, get them down. We can't do this anymore.
Mr. T became popular because he won bar contest here in the States and in Chicago, and they'd emulate British games, and he became popular doing dwarf tossing.
Shut
Yeah,
up.
that's-
No, hang on. Let me quantify this. Mr. T, WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, the A-Team, Mr. T and the T-Force by Neil Adams became popular by dwarf tossing.
Yeah, there is a direct link to that.
I don't have a bingo card for that.
There is a direct link to that. Yeah, if you look up, and I know it's got to be online because they had it on TV shows.
By the way, just to
This is going
clarify,
to be
Mark,
Mark's last episode with this. His wife is going to pull us off now that she's
Mr. T became popular because he went kind of viral back in the short video kind of days in the 70s and things.
Oh, his
They
PSAs
had
are
like
amazing.
bouncer contest, and
Yeah.
one of the things in a bouncer contest was dwarf tossing.
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
One bouncer contest?
Yeah, doorman,
What-
bouncers at
what-
bars.
You're like trying to rebound dwarves off the wall for a 3-pointer? What the
No, how far could you toss a dwarf? How
Of
far
course,
could you
that's a
toss
more sane
dwarf?
answer. Why do I even question this?
Well, they were covered in bubble wrap, so they
That's
could
the first. No, not at all. They did throw them on gymnastics mats, but
Oh, good.
I mean, just type in Mr. T dwarf toss, and it's got.
I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. The amount of East European whores want to be your friends malware that exists on those websites.
open an email or a message from Kyle again. He's troll you with this stuff now. Yeah. I was a dwarf tosser, and then they outlawed it. You know, I'm just saying.
Yep, I can bring it around to dwarf tossing. So
I feel that might be one of your
hey,
parts.
Bill knew the
Like
answer.
7 degrees of dwarf tossing.
Yeah, Bill knew the answer. Bill's played his fair share of Trivial Pursuit.
Well, no, it's funny. It's funny because they even featured on Letterman one time, and
Well-
it used to be. I mean, it wasn't something that was like axe tossing is a big deal over here now. I don't know
Big
if it is.
deal here. Yeah.
Okay, which I mean, I can understand that. And it's supposedly no one ever gets hurt. I find that hard to believe, especially.
Well, you're
They
there,
throw
and
them
you're
on the
funding it
gymnastics
there.
mats, but a lot of them would talk about it, and they'd be like, "Hell, I'm getting paid a lot of money to do this. I'm goofing off, and I'm getting tossed, and I'm getting paid a lot of money. Where am I going to make?" They'd make a week's nut in one night being tossed.
Well,
like
does
10
that make
times.
them sports professionals in a way?
Well,
I
you
mean-
would think. You would think
That-
that they're like,
that's-
hey,
yes.
you know.
A realm of amateur dwarf tossing that I feel like back alley dwarf tossing. They're just throwing him in skips rather than like fucking crash mats.
Well,
If he
they-
dies, he dies.
Here's
Almost
here's
in a back
American
alley
in a
dwarf
nutshell
tossing
for you.
ring.
You want American in a nutshell for you.
I did 6 years for that.
They also used to
And when I
have.
went out, all these dwarves came and beat the shit out of me.
I could take it until Tom Waits started writing songs about me being
There you
airborne.
Here's some Tom Waits trivia for you. How does Tom Waits pick his concert venues?
By darts.
By darts.
Really?
He puts a map up on the wall and sits in his chair and throws darts and goes to
We
the
didn't rehearse
smallest.
this earlier.
Yeah, he goes to the smallest venue in the suburb town that he lands closest to. He'll be
Doesn't
like, I want to
surprise
do
me
10
for the
shows, and it can be all over the U.S. And he'd be like, you know, I'm going to go here. And he'd be like, I'm going to go to Europe, and I'm going to do 5 shows. And he'd throw darts from like 10 feet across the room sitting in his chair. And he wouldn't go to the big venues. He'd go to like a 200-seater or less.
He and my cousin Lyle Lovett are good friends, and they go to each other's shows all the time. There's lots of photos of Tom Waits at the Lyle Lovett shows.
Waits is brilliant with that, and it's just so
very
random.
I
And
really
will
wish
not
somebody
tell a
employed
week
Tom
in
Waits to
advance.
write a comic. Hey, does anybody remember when the show was about comics?
There you go. But
That was a few months ago, Nevs.
Nevs.
I don't think I wasn't on last week, and I don't think you showed a single comic.
I did. Okay, I'm gonna go get a comic just to preview.
We all showed a couple of comics.
Come back with Gilbert Gottfried's corpse.
Yeah, but something totally American, because around the dwarf tossing time, and again, late 70s.
Around the dwarf tossing time.
They had not just bouncer contests, but they had, bounty hunter things too. And like who could go through the thickest door and things like that.
I genuinely thought you were going to say who could go through the thickest dwarf. And I'm like, in what?
Yeah, through the thickest door. And they shoulder block out these heavier doors. And that got kind of boring because, they couldn't go up to the steel type doors or anything like that. Any basic wooden door, any of these football sized guys would just plow right through. So they changed it and started putting smaller stuntmen, jockey sized stuntmen. And they're like, who could you put through the door? And this guy threw this guy out the door, and they did it on the second floor, and he went down a flight of stairs and damn near died. And they're like, well, I guess we got to stop that. Now, how American is that?
Who couldn't have foreseen this coming?
Yeah, it's just so stupid. And it's like he threw the guy through the door. The guy went through the door, down the stairs, damn near died. They're like, yep, I guess we can't do this anymore. America.
So what you're telling me is American culture was basically about throwing guys.
Yeah.
A lot. And please note the adverb I use there, because I know as soon as I say something along the lines of, there sure was a lot of guy tossing in the 80s.
No, don't do that, Nevs.
You can see how it could go wrong, right?
Yeah.
So we're leaving that alone.
And then while Bill's looking for his comic, because you said Gilbert, let me go get something that's fairly close to me.
Oh, cool. I was watching the Gilbert Godfrey roast of Roseanne yesterday, which is astounding. It's like the Rosilla segment, which I can't do because it's too long. But luckily, Bill is back now with presumably a comic, which isn't Gilbert Godfrey's corpse.
Oh, he's got a comic.
He's got an actual comic.
Linus.
Linus,
the line-hearted.
So this was actually, all these characters all had their own cereal brands in the 60s, and they had a cartoon based on them, and basically they were the reason why Congress passed a thing that said you could no longer have 30-minute ads for your cereals in cartoons.
Is that because of the excessive amount of dwarf tossing that took place in them, or?
No.
My favorite Gilbert Gottfried autograph.
I'll tell you this. This cartoon had a bigger budget.
That's awesome, Kyle.
And it was actually very funny and had people like Carl Reiner, Jonathan Winters as voices. I mean, you had America's top talent from the 60s on this.
Okay.
Isn't Linus a character in Peanuts?
He is, yeah. He's also named for a magazine in France about comic culture.
In this case, this guy, Linus, who was played by Sheldon Leonard, who played like the king of the mobs in the mob movies of the 30s.
I thought that was Lippy the Lion and Hardy Har Har.
No. This is Lovable Truly, America's favorite.
Oh, okay.
America's favorite postman, and he did alphabets, of course, his letters.
So
and
there's my to Kyle, which sits under the for mature audiences line. But he loved it. When I got to sit down with Gilbert, he loved that I pulled out the aristocrats. Because he told the best of them.
Come on, Kyle. Come on. You know you want to do it. Do your version of the aristocrats joke.
Come on, please.
How much longer are we going to be on? You've been on for an hour and a half. I could do a 45-minute aristocrats joke.
Oh my God! Please no. So Mark's already been through the red light district today. We don't want to make him go through it twice.
So Gigi Allen takes his family to go meet an agent.
I like that version.
How's
And
that for a
in Amsterdam.
Okay, guys, I've got to
So-
go. I'll see you again
that
soon.
Have a good time, Mark.
Mark's
So-
coming up, man.
See you soon, buddy.
So Gigi was tossing the shit while his wife was tossing a dwarf.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a wild card at you guys because there was a thing I wanted to get onto the show tonight, so it's gonna require me reading for about 5 minutes. So bear with me, right?
Okay,
My
go
good friend Simon Russell has put together an anthology called Madeline, and various people from around the British comics collecting scene from the 70s and 80s have written various recollections. It's in the benefit of the idea that, you know, time consumes everything, including memories, so it's good to try and document this stuff. And one of the people who contributed to this was my old boss, Paul Hudson of Comic Showcase fame, who also recently wrote the book, The A to Z of British Newspaper Strips, currently available via the Book Palace. So this is Paul's recollection, and I'm putting it in here because he's got a Ramon story in it. So Paul, if you're watching this in retrospect, I'm sorry I didn't ask you, but people should know about your work. And again, like David Hine, you're really bad at promoting it. Whereas me, like the great late Roddy Piper, I've got a really big mouth, right? So I'm just going to read this. It will take a couple of minutes, and then we'll carry on, right? This is called Down to the Basement, and it's by Paul Hudson, and it is published in Madeline. I should have checked with him before I came in the show, but I believe if you contact Simon Russell, he's on my friends list. There are copies available. I got this as a kind of being a friend of Simon thing. So again, nepotistic declaration made. This is by Paul. It's funny how the memory plays tricks on you as you get older. A cliche, but inevitably a truism simultaneously. For example, I was convinced that I owed my long career in comics to the Ramones, but a brief research into their UK tour dates has had me questioning my recollection, and perhaps I should put this into some context. Going to concerts 45 years ago was a far different affair to today, in many ways. Obviously, I was filled with the enthusiasm and energy of youth, but this also coincided with very affordable ticket prices and no advance booking for many venues, which meant if you got there early enough and were prepared to queue, albeit in a disorderly fashion, the chances are you would gain entry. The Roundhouse in London was a favourite venue. Every Sunday, they would showcase 3 or more bands, groups such as the Stranglers, Susie and the Banshees, and many more. An afternoon start and relatively comfortable finish time meant that those of us who had yet to make the leap from the leafy suburbs to the inner city could still struggle home before that last train beckoned. One show in June 1977 featured the Ramones, Talking Heads, and the Saints. Quite a lineup. The queue up steep steps of the Roundhouse was a frantic sea of humanity, with the great unwashed jostling each other to get in. I just about made it before the cutoff point was reached and hundreds of disappointed folks were turned away. The official capacity of the venue was around 3,000, although I have no idea how strictly that was adhered to. But wait, my story relies on me missing the cut and failing to get into the gig, so this must have been a different occasion. For 4.5 decades, my internal monologue has insisted that my destiny turned on a Ramones concert, but that's clearly a false memory. I know for a fact that I attended and enjoyed that show, I believe from the relative comfort of the seated dress circle where the old stoners and those who were not up for the mosh pit would gather. My abiding recollection was of Talking Heads on an early visit to our shores who blew the headliners off the stage. The only vinyl they had released at that point was a 12-inch shingle of Psycho Killer, but they played what in a few months' time was to become their astonishing debut album in its entirety. And I was there. Now, the observant reader may, at this juncture, be questioning, what the hell has this got to do with comics? And when is the silly old fool going to get to the point? Paul, stop self-depreciating yourself in your writing, mate. It's not necessary. I shall attempt to bring my rambling journey back in hand. If I saw the Ramones, it must be someone else that I failed to see. I have no idea who that may have been, and it probably doesn't matter. They were popular enough to leave me stranded ticketless on said Roundhouse steps, and that's the only occasion I failed to get in. The only recourse was to retire to the pub opposite and seek solace amongst my fellow concert refugees. After a few drinks, vodka and orange if you're buying. I bumped into the familiar figure of Davy, who worked at Dark They Were and Golden Eyed. Davy was known as Davy to distinguish him from fellow employee Dave Baldock. I cannot for the life of me recall Davy's surname, but I think he handled the science fiction side of things and almost certainly was in charge of bookkeeping. I first visited Dark They Were and Golden Eyed in Berwick Street around 1975, where I was introduced by Guy Lawley and was persuading Mike Lake to stock our fanzine Glimpse on their shelves. In 76, they relocated to more spacious premises in St Anne's Court, where the comic section got its own domain in the basement. Now, by 1977, I had a job at Harrods and was a frequent visitor to the shop during my lunch hour or on my day off. I was also a part-time dealer at the London Comic Marts, initially as an attempt to subsidise our loss-making fanzine, but carrying on just because it was fun and I was getting to know like-minded characters, which is a nice segue vaguely back to the pub. After a few bevies and much chat, Davey spontaneously offered me a job. I didn't even know there was a vacancy. If it had not been for the chance meeting, if I pushed and shoved a little harder early on, would that job have been snapped up by someone else? I can only assume there would have been plenty of takers had I not accepted on the spot, and I often wonder what different path my life would have taken. To me, the change of employer was an absolute no-brainer. I love the world of retail, but the stifling environment of a posh department store was not for me. My parents, understandably, were less excited and feared I was being lured into a den of iniquity. I was, and was extremely happy at the prospect. Anyway, thank you, Davey. Your leap of faith eventually led me to Forbidden Planet and then Comic Showcase, and without that, I would probably likely be stuck in a middle management job in some godforsaken hole, never knowing how many fabulous experiences and friendships in the world of four-color fun I was going to miss out on. And by Paul Hudson. So again, if you want a copy, look up Madeline, look up Simon Russell. Paul Hudson recently finished and published his book, The A to Z of British Comic Strip Art, via the Book Palace. So yeah, I'll try and drop a link into the things on how people can get this, but it looks like this. I have one more thing, but I'll come to that because I've just dominated. So you guys say whatever you want. Kyle, back in the room, pal.
Oh, I didn't even mean to interrupt, but I had a military helicopter formation just buzz my house.
I saw it. It was great.
What have you been doing now?
Who knows?
Have you been trying to get the ducks that killed Frank Castle's family again?
There you go. There you go. No, I am going to tiptoe upstairs here in a little bit and go grab a comic book to blow you away, but...
Oh.
Go get it now.
Go get it now, man.
Go get it now.
My last
I'll be
assembled
back.
piece is fairly ranty.
Hopefully they don't start this big lawnmower out here before I get back.
I'm still with you. I'm just off screen for a certain reason right now.
I'm just going to hold up this book so people can take snapshots.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I know, right?
I love that. I love that. Really, Dr. Cake.
Uh-huh.
What's Dr. Cake?
The Dr. Cake is. It's a riff on the whole Lucy and Charlie Brown thing, obviously. But it is a pun about the lack of memory, and the fact that the sentence is constructed in an incorrect fashion is the clue to what this is about. So, hey, segue while we're waiting for Kyle to finish being streamed by helicopters.
Yeah,
have you read Hey Kids comics?
Yes.
Holy shit.
I'm not caught up, but I have been, and I love it.
Holy shit, dude. So I don't know if we was friends when I started this, but like 2016 or so, I started the Facebook page Mondo Funny Books.
Friends, yeah.
And it was my irritation with the false version of comics history that exists, that, essentially Stan Lee and Bob Kane created everything, and everything that's happened subsequent is because they were so nice. They were both like the Colonel Saunders. And I wanted Mondo Funny Books, because the Comics Journal doesn't seem to do that anymore, to basically be, by the way, this happened as well. By the way, this person's name ought to be attached to this concept. By the way, David Mazzucchelli and Frank Miller are to do with Daredevil Born Again, and perhaps that should be mentioned, right? And I've been talking like this for anyone who's known me for any period of time, who's got to talk to me about comics. I will invariably circle back to the foundation of this church that you worship is built on crap and lies. And I have been so behind in my recent comic reading that I've only just got to Hey Kids Comics this week because I've been like, here, the other thing. Life happens. Life happens, Bill.
But it's okay. So it's not only Chaykin's love letter to comics, it's also his what the fuck to comics.
Absolutely. So we should bring in people who haven't read it. Essentially, it is an analog of the history of comics running back from the Siegel and Schuster deal up to the sale of Marvel to Disney and the subsequent exploitation of the characters in movie form and stuff. And it takes you decade by decade in little 3-page segments. So the first 3 pages is the 30s, and it just follows these 5 characters who all have experiences that anyone who knows comics history will know. So they run into the Lichtenstein stuff. They run into the Bill Gaines and Frederick Wertham stuff. They run into Stan Lee corralling everyone to this whole thing that Jack Kirby puts together, and that creates the Mighty Marvel Ballpen Society. And it's so like, how is this not a TV show? Because it nails it. It's absolutely merciless. Like the character of Bob Rose.
Howard wrote it like a TV show. You have to
absolutely, yeah. It does read like a pitch because it jumps around enough to stay interesting. Because it's only the final issue of the first series that is like in one period of time,
right?
But obviously, it runs like a crossfade to the 50s and stuff. And as you get through each issue, it fills in the next bit after the next 3 pages.
Right.
My God, this is. That and this and Hey Kids, not Hey Kids Comics, Comic Book History of Comics by Fred Van Lente ought to be required reading, I think.
Should be.
Next to like Brian Hibbs's Tilting at Windmills and Will Eisner's Sequential Comics and Sequential Art. It's one of those things where I worry it will dissipate into the everything. Because like it was happenstance. Like my phone was out of battery, so I grabbed a stack of comics to read on the bus to work. So I was like, oh, do you know what? I haven't read this yet. And like, if you're into this long enough, you just accumulate even the most treasured thing, like the most recent Bill Sienkiewicz thing or the most recent Chaykin thing. You're like, I will get round to this because I know pretty much what I'm going to get. But holy moly, man, this is like this. And of course, Chaykin's a really good comic book.
Well, what I'm trying to tell you, though.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just glad we got back to it before I forgot it. But Chaykin has written more television scripts probably than anyone else in comics. He wrote, I want to say the majority of the scripts for the original Flash TV series in the 90s.
Sure. He did Mutant X as well, didn't he? Which was like that really odd 90s X-Men spinoff.
Yeah, and he's really written some wonderful television stuff. And so when he does something like Hey Kids Comics, I know he's imagining it as a television show he's watching as opposed to, because he thinks very cinematically, which most comic artists and writers should, but they don't all. But he's just, oh my God. He's the greatest.
Yeah.
He said he'll be on our show, so we should really have him on here.
I would absolutely be down for that. I don't think I've read you.
Quit drooling, man.
But have I got questions about Black Kiss?
I know who you are, man.
Okay, Bill. Well, I can say it now because it's outside of the legal boundaries. But like, I was one of the few people to smuggle like the issues of Black Kiss that were banned by customs and excise into the country. Because that happened. Oh, maybe you didn't know about this when Black Kiss happened.
I know, but how hard is it to just smuggle a comic? I mean, it can't be that hard. I mean, I wouldn't.
Well. No, but it might be, Bill. Hypothetically, might be.
Okay.
Perhaps a certain body has said this comic cannot be sold in this country via the normal methods of Diamond sends it over. So it might be somebody else is friends with somebody in America and says, "Hey, can you send us like 100 copies so that way certain shops who wouldn't have access to it now they do."
Right.
because it's such an arbitrary thing, and it was one of those like we went through all this with the 90s when Customs and Excise came down on Gosh Comics because they had like Minara stuff, the Love and Rocket stuff, and Paul, whose thing I just read out, in fact, jumped out of a plane with Des skin to raise money for the court case against that. And it's one of those things that continuously we have to fight. We can't just assume, hey, everything's all right now, because it will never be. So you constantly have to maintain that, what's the word I'm looking for? Defiance, I guess. Because I don't
have Des on the show.
people
That
in Customs Excise to make the best decisions.
and I think Des would happily do our show.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's a great guy. I love him.
Des has got and Des generates a lot of stories.
Oh, I'm sure. He probably was in the center, most of them. I mean, he's a character. I mean, he's no Stan Lee, but I mean, he's a Des Skin.
I'd go as far as to say, I might get some flack for this. I would say Des is our Stan Lee. Like, Des was doing that kind of, because obviously he's got the history of doing the Marvel UK reprints, but also he was doing the House of Horror stuff, and he was doing the Warrior stuff before Comics International. He was that guy who was basically being the what's the word I'm looking for? The nexus for the community. So he would write these quite interesting way to basically create this community and maintain it. Which is, there's been a lot of competitors of people trying to run British magazines, and I don't think Farg from 2000 AD. It isn't real. Like, I don't think anyone touches Des on that.
Well,
I don't think anyone touches Des on the possibility of being the guy who, holds together the community and knows everyone. Better or for worse. But,
that's very Stan Lee, though, too.
Absolutely. That's why I say it.
No. I'm agreeing with your case.
Got ya.
Yeah. No, I'm on your side. Well, if Kyle doesn't come back soon, I'm going to have to bolt. We're almost done.
Well, that's right. I mean, we've nearly done 2 hours. I feel the only thing that's going to happen now is Kyle is going to do his version of the aristocrats joke.
Oh, God.
And if we haven't been taken off the air yet, I think that would be the thing that pings it over.
Or it will be the cat. Oh, here he comes now.
Here he comes. All right.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to retell the
I'm going to tell you stories about my ass now.
The Indy 500 you wouldn't believe. I'm going to moon you first.
Have you guys seen my ass?
Sorry, I had things. I used to have these in order.
We missed you, buddy.
You want to get my barbecue sauce on the air now?
Man.
Oh,
AJ Foyt and I went out and we
it's a gold foil, son bitch, Mr. T right there.
I'm AJ Foyt.
It's autographed by Mr. T.
Oh my, and AJ Foyt.
So there you go.
I've never seen the gold foil one before. I must confess.
Gorgeous.
I've got the newsstand polybagged with trading card, but that's
the gold foil are the first 10,000 off the line, and they're autographed. So since you were having the debate about great writers, let's bring out Stan's Best, Ravage 2099. Of course, the only good thing about this book is it's actually signed by Stan.
Who wrote that book?
Stan Lee.
That's genuinely Stan Lee.
That's Stan Lee's last regular Marvel book.
So, the weird backstory of that thing is around 1989, I think. John Byrne and Stan Lee were plotting out this thing that was going to be called The Future of the Marvel Universe. And then John went off to do Next Men. And Stan went off to Hollywood again. So they were left with what would be the future of the Marvel Universe. And that's where you get the 2099 world from, which Stan comes back to write. But you also get Spidey 2099, X-Men 2099, Ghost Rider, which has got really early Ashley Wood artwork in it. That's pretty cool.
That's very
cool.
So he says Stan Lee was the best. Here's a silly ash can. Signed by George Freeman, Leah Moore, and Alan Moore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was That kind of came out around the same time as the ABC line, didn't it? It was like a Wildstorm book.
George Freeman, the Canadian comic artist who starred Captain Canuck.
You'll have to ask
Captain
Kyle.
Canuck came out in 75. Hold on, I gotta close this.
Okay.
What is there a chainsaw going on? Is Leatherface in your house?
Metal.
There's a big lawnmower, and he's just turning around, and he ran over some
lawnmower?
yard.
Oh my God! I thought that was like '80s Judas Priest. I swear to God, I thought it sounded like a guitar. It didn't sound like a lawnmower. No.
That ain't no music. That's someone playing a lawnmower.
I'll be down. Here comes your ghost. Yeah.
So, who was the greatest? Who was the greatest dwarf tosser? It was Mr. T. Who was the greatest writer? Was it Alan Moore? Was it Stanley?
Or was it Peter Dinklage? Oh,
Or was it Neil Gaiman? Was it Peter Dinklage?
There you go. So there's Alice
Penny
Cooper's.
Baker remains annoyed.
There's Alice Cooper's autograph. There's Michael Zulli's autograph.
Oh,
There's Neil
beautiful.
Gaiman's autograph.
I have a fancy version of that somewhere that's got the album on vinyl with it.
There's the regular
Mhm.
comic.
Alice.
That was
Which
one of those
is
things we were
significant.
discussing on the last show. Marvel had such a good thing with that, and they just
But-
didn't promote it properly.
There's my autographs of
They
the
never
greatest writers and the greatest dwarf tossers.
They
See,
didn't-
I showed
They
comic
didn't
books.
promote the From the Inside comic either in 1979. The Marvel premiere.
That's
They-
true.
They didn't promote that worth a damn, and that was arguably in my eyes the best Alice Cooper album ever, bar none. It was
You know-
with
Best Alice Cooper song, bar none, Cold Ethel.
Oh,
I'm gonna make a wild pitch before I call it a night because I need a coffee. I think we should try and get Mort Todd on the show. Mort Todd is the guy who put together the Monsters Attack magazine and the Marvel Music line.
that's
And I
good.
don't think enough people know about the Marvel Music line, for one. And for two, I think that's got to be a thing that's got a lot of stories attached to it. And I want to know. I want to know, like, what happened with the Rolling Stones comic. How do you possibly not sell 1 million copies of a Rolling Stones comic drawn by Dave McKean, by the way?
Well, and why did he and Jimmy Cliff almost get thrown off a cliff for gambling debts? I'm kidding. Sorry,
So while I was up there,
head.
while I was up there doddering around, were you guys just taking a piss out of me the whole time?
No,
No, just about like the last 2 minutes.
Once we heard the door open, that's when we started doing the Kyle imitations.
I'm sorry. In my head, you sound like Jim Ross.
We were still behind your back. We'll only do it.
We were live on camera doing this,
I
Kyle.
love you. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably wouldn't do it if there wasn't a sea between us. I'm not going to lie to you.
You and I are only 4 states away. I'm a bit concerned.
Hey,
But
I'm a broke down old man. I can't even make it up and down a flight of stairs anymore without trouble.
meanwhile, tomorrow, Bill, come out, damn it.
Yeah.
No, I did get a message.
Wake
from
up on
Texas
Saturday to
today.
find like Kyle's killed Postman Pat and the Queen or something.
If May 17th weren't to be my granddaughter's expected birth date, I would probably be in Kyle, Texas on May 17th.
For what? Was it Kyle Day?
Kyle Day, the biggest gathering of people named Kyle. They're trying to go for the Guinness World Record.
Well, you
This
know,
isn't a rib, is it? You mean this?
yes, he does. And you know what's amazing about that is you'd be here 2 days after that is Bill Field Day because it's my birthday, May 19th.
go.
So, see?
Yeah, I
May
just got a
19th.
message for that today, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to make it because I'll probably be in
Not going to
hospital.
Kyle Fest this year.
Not going to Kyle Fest because I got a
Kyle
granddaughter coming.
Or with the ghost of Jimi Hendrix. Going,
Well, I think whatever day of the week that Bill Field Day is, we should broadcast a show on Bill Day.
Saturday. It's going to be a Saturday.
Saturday night is Bill night.
And they
That's
got to
what I
break
say.
the record, and I'm trying to remember where it was, but somewhere in an Eastern Bloc country, they set the record in like 2017 with 2,500 Ivans.
Please tell me this is called House of 1,000 Kyles, because if it isn't, someone has failed.
It's like not Kyle Palooza, but Kyle-a-thon. It's like a Kyle-a-thon. I don't even remember what it was. I showed it to my wife, and she kind of retched a little bit. She's like, "Yeah, you realize that's the expected date for the baby."
It's the Kyle of White Festival.
Fuck this, I'm out. I'm done.
And Kyle shouldn't be much. I got a little pink in me right now, but Kyle shouldn't be much more white. If I was more white, I'd be
most
Nevs.
fucking obtuse joke in the world.
I would love to go to the Kyle of White Festival.
I would too. It would be fun, you know.
And that is WIGHT, by the way. And that's,
I know that is. I know. Which is an old-fashioned,
Oh my god,
version of Caucasian. No, I'm kidding. White?
Please tell me you guys all dress up as Kyle from South Park.
So, this is my lamp.
This is your lamp. No, I'm done. I'm done.
This is my lamp that my brother got me, but it's Kenny. It's my lamp that my brother got me that's Kenny, that's kind of being used as a bowl smoker for ET.
Bull smoker.
Yeah, it looks like he's smoking a bowl when he's on top of the lamp without a bulb in it. But my Kyle stuff, which again is at my library too, but I got a little pencil thing that when you take the pencil out, it says, "Damn it." My mom says the funniest thing. My mom saw Bigger, Longer, Uncut. When she saw that song, Kyle's Mom is a Big Fat Bitch, she could not quit laughing. 20 odd years later, she's still laughing at that. She, Kyle's mom's a bitch. Yeah, such a fucking bitch. She loves that song.
Guys, as always, it has been memorable, legally questionable, morally reprehensible, but I gotta go to bed. I love you guys so much, and it's been a pleasure to be on once again. Thank you for grounding me.
I've been watching Gray swirl on his thing, so I'd imagine Gray's probably already gone to sleep. So
maybe next show,
for sure,
we keep away from Jimmy Savile.
That'd be a new thing.
That'd be a thing, right? That'd be a benchmark to aim for. Good night, guys. As I always say,
take his boyhood home next week. He'll just be standing out in front of Jimmy's home. And he'll go, "Here I am."
I'm invading Savileville.
Which is the opposite of what happened in his lifetime. Whoa!
Hey.
On that fucking bombshell.
Thanks for keeping it running, Gray.
Good night.
All right. See you later, Gray.